Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. So, if you understand the title, we're going to be talking about toxic leadership. Now, I'm going to talk about some things that happened to me. So, I recently discharged from the United States Army. I served 6 years, 10 months in the United States Army, partially in the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne, and I ended it in the 82nd Airborne. So let's start off how it was. So I arrived at Fort Liberty as a sergeant with 2 years under my belt as a sergeant. I arrived bitter and then not in the mindset I should have been, right? So I got an Article 15 that I don't think I deserved. I will make a separate video on that if the viewers want to see that. But long story short, I got an Article 15 I didn't agree with. And I had 60 days of leave taken from me, cut down to 12, and I spent about 5 of those days moving from Fort Campbell to Fort Liberty, North Carolina. So I arrived to the 82nd burnt, which is not ready for the op-tempo that is the Alcoholics Anonymous of last second, let's fucking go, man. I wasn't ready for that. As I arrived there, it was weird. I showed up to the company and I'm like, hey, they're like, hello. I'm like, hey, I'm a new NCO here. Officer tells me, oh, everyone's coming back on this day. So I show up at 5:45 ready to do PT, and nothing happened. No one's there. So I come back at 9:30, and I went to the first sergeant's office, knocked on it, and I met the first sergeant. The dude kind of looked at me and just poked his head down and didn't look me in the eye. I thought it was fucking weird. So he goes, I got an armor position open up for you. I'm like, I got an armor experience first sergeant. I don't mean to say I don't know how to do something, but I didn't come here to do that. I came here to be a team leader. I think it'd be best if you find someone that knows that role. Came back to the 82nd to be a team leader. He goes, okay. And the whole conversation I was having with him back and forth, he didn't look at me whatsoever. He had his head down the whole time, which, I don't know, I give people the benefit of the doubt a lot. You know, maybe he had something going on. They were coming back from block leave, so I'm like, I don't know, whatever, he seems cool. Takes me over to the platoon office, and I see dudes in there, and he goes, hey, Sergeant First Class, I got a new NCO for you. And immediately I noticed a bunch of stacked squad leaders with CIBs, and I'm like, oh, sweet, I haven't seen this since I was a private. Because 1st Brigade had a legendary reputation. During my first contract, they deployed about 3 or 4 times. So, seeing stacked leadership was pretty good, in my opinion. Platoon sergeant turns around, he's got his ICP top on, and I notice his Ranger scroll. He's kind of trying to intimidate me, looking me up and down like, and I'm like, it's a little weird. Usually you do that for a new private, not a new NCO. So I'm there, and he tells me, this is what I expect of you. Don't be hanging out up here, be downstairs training the guys on. After that, he starts asking me about, you know, how long I was a team leader. I'm like, I was a team leader for about a year total. And he was a little odd that I was a 6-year E5 and hadn't been a squad leader yet. And I'm like, well, I wanted to become a squad leader based on what I knew the Army needed. And I was an experienced staff sergeant or senior E5. I didn't want to become a 4-year staff sergeant that had the mindset of a team leader and just being aggressive without much experience and wisdom to back that up. So I progressed the way I wanted. I showed up and made sure I didn't do DLC 2 so that I could stay in E5 because I did not like the quality of soldier at Campbell. I showed up wanting to be a team leader for soldiers that mattered to me. I don't want to say soldiers at Campbell didn't matter, but when you leave an airborne unit, you don't realize how good you have it till you leave it. That's all I'll say there. Well, things were going all right. My roommate was going through some depression. My roommate was a private in the used to be in the company that I was assigned to. He was depressed. I'm like, what's wrong, man? He's like, yeah, I got an Article 15, and then he told me a bunch of other stuff that was a little odd. He was ostracized from the company. So there was an alleged incident where the roommate he had, which was the room that I was currently living in. The guy that lived there before me vandalized a soldier's Jeep. And they believed that my roommate at the time was part of that, solely because the golf clubs that were stolen out of that Jeep were in the roommate's room. The room that I was staying in. And for the investigation, I don't know if it was the commander, I believe it was the commander of that company, ordered the company not to talk to that soldier. And they were enforcing that so much that I believe there was one incident where a staff sergeant went through a soldier's phone to make sure he wasn't talking to my roommate, which is really fucking weird. And, you know, you hear a private talking shit, and you're just like, whatever. Privates lie sometimes. But then he and I were walking one day down the hallway, and he went up to someone that was a member of the platoon, a dude I knew, and he's like, hey, why can't I, is it true that I'm not allowed to talk to anyone in the platoon? He's like, yeah, dude, but I don't give a fuck. And I'm like, whoa, this is true? And then I'm like, that's against the EO policy in the Army. How are you can't just order people not to talk to somebody under a 15-6. If you're under a 15-6, that entails, hey, 15-6, don't talk about details of your investigation with other people. Not, oh, everyone's got to stay away from this one guy because he's under investigation. That's not how that fucking works. And that struck me as odd, because to me that sounded like an emotionally charged response to a situation. And my first thought was, alright, the roommate told me about the Article 15 he got. He said some dumb shit he shouldn't have. And, you know, it didn't sound like that big of a deal, but he was just slammed for it. And they were continuing to slam him after he left the company. And I'm like, how petty. Alright. So moving forward from that, I was assigned as an assistant gunner. My position was a Carl Gustav assistant gunner. I had one Joe. I was assigned the designated marksman rifle, the M110A1. Great, loved it. Went to the range and shot it. Beautiful weapon system. And then we do a squad live fire. I did good. I ran out there, did exactly what I needed to do. And then we did as a line squad. They pulled me to go send me to the field as an E5 rifleman because they needed extra bodies, but also to see how well I'd perform as a member of a team, which, you know, I agree with. Now, one thing the NCOs in the platoon were talking, the team leader in charge of the team I was attached to, they were talking shit about him, saying that he sucks and they gotta fire him. They laid out for me the op order of how they were gonna do things. I wasn't there because I was going between AIC and coming back to work. So AIC I believe was finished at that time, and I was able to get in there. And just from what they described, I immediately laid out the plan. Simple: squad attack with a building. So essentially 2 battle drills in one, you know. And they were impressed. They're like, oh wow, you already knew this. We should already have you be the team leader. I'm like, all right. We go out to the field, and well, before we go, when you're part of the NCO Corps, you help out your fellow NCO. You know, I wasn't that, oh, this guy sucks, I'm better than him. Like, no, dude. Like, I got to talking to the sergeant. He had been in for over a decade. He took a break in time in service, and he was in another MOS. So he didn't understand the infantry. My first thought was, oh, that's why. He's not a retard or whatever this is. And I talked to him. He was a very intellectual thinker, this gentleman. And I'm like, all right, let me help this dude. One thing I was credited for is I knew how to teach just about anybody. You just got to figure out how somebody learns and teach them. It's not that difficult. And he was from another country, so speaking English wasn't his first language, to say that. So there was a little difficulty, but it wasn't impossible. And it's okay. I was up for a challenge. So did the live fire. They tried to fire him and put me in charge, but they would have had to restart with me from the beginning to qualify me, and I said, nah, just keep me a rifleman. So anytime I was informed that he wasn't doing what he needed to, I was told to take over, which I did. I call rates of fire. I tell him you got a bound, base of fire, you know, whatever. Things were going all right. So then after this, we leave. We get ready for the CTE. So everyone jumps in. We go to the field. And at this point, all of a sudden, while I was having a good time, things were kind of getting bad for me. Right? My mental health. I wasn't taking care of my mental health, and I was making some very poor choices that I shouldn't have made, which led to a lot of bad things happening to me. So we go to the CTE, and I remember we're patrolling. I was at AG for 240 this time, temporarily, till my goose gunner got out there. And we're in an area defense. I remember I laid out some shifts, and this is where I fucked up. I started kind of falling down from here, so to say. I said, Soldier 1, you pull this shift. And after this shift, you wake up Soldier 2. Soldier 2 pulls a shift, and then he wakes me up. Well, Soldier 1 woke me up, and I'm like, what the? No, it's Soldier 2's shift. Oh, okay. And little did I know, they flip-flopped. So that soldier ended up pulling 2 shifts, and when they woke me up, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me. I'll tell you, I think I was just being a bitch. I don't know how else to describe myself, my behavior that night. I was being a bitch. I think I was feeling sorry for myself, and I just was like, get up. And I just kind of sat up trying to wake my ass up. Because if everyone knows me in the field, I sleep like a fucking rock. But that's not an excuse. So I got yelled at to get woken up, and I'm like, all right, I'm an NCO, and I'm making these private decisions. What's going on? So my platoon sergeant approaches the foxhole and goes, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. Like, I fucked up. Like, he's like, all right, here's what you're going to do. Every time someone wakes up, you're going to wake up with them, and you're going to check every position. I said, got you, Sergeant. And I made sure to do that. You know, even as an NCO, if you fuck up, as long as you own that mistake, you just move with it. And I did. You know, some little other mistakes were made, like I was brushing my teeth and I looked away and my gunner wasn't on the 240, and I got yelled at for that. And they're like, what the fuck, you're at? I'm like, so I got on the gun and I just, all right, just affirming it, hey, get on the gun. I had a new private with me, newish. He was just doing his thing. That's not his fault, that was my fault. So I was just like, come on, I'm thinking in my mind, what's going on here? You know this. Get your head in the fucking game. Well, then we go to platoon live fires. So part of the packing list is I had to pack level 5s, but they also said pack OCPs, and things, it was getting hot, but I chose not to pack OCPs because I thought that we didn't need it. You know, I spent time deployed in Poland, sleeping in 7-degree weather. I was not a fan of the cold, so I just wore my level 5s. A couple of other soldiers in the company did the same thing, but the temperature brought up to 70 degrees, and I was like, shit. Luckily, I was smart enough to pack a t-shirt in case something like that happened. And I took my silks off and just wore a t-shirt. And if anyone knows how the ECWICs work, if you don't wear your silks, it doesn't fucking work. It acts like a windbreaker. And during the platoon live fire, there were people wearing the level 4 windbreaker top, and no one said anything to them. Well, you know, my squad leader, I had to let him know. He was like, okay. I ran the lane, and when we got to the end of the lane, I threw up twice. And one of the times I was throwing up while trying to load my Carl Goose gunner. I was like, all right. I dead sprinted to the objective as we're doing this this platoon lane, and I threw up at the bottom of the hill, and then I got up to the hill, got on the Goose, and then threw up trying to load that fucker too. So my first sergeant and platoon sergeant were very reactive. They're like, you're heat-catting. When you throw up, that means you're heat-catting. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? My entire almost 7 years in the Army at that time was that's weakness leaving the body, and you get encouraged for throwing up because it shows you're pushing yourself. Now all of a sudden you're gonna heat cat. I'm like, I get that. It does mean that your body's heating up and it's letting that out, but I was standing there talking as I'm talking now, going, I'm fine. So they said, go over to the FLA, and I'm like, all right. The medics clear me and go, you are fine and you are okay to train. So we go into, after the AAR that the platoon had, we go and do an AAR again as together, away from the officers, and we're talking, and They're like, you're a liability. You need to go be in a permanent animal guard until we get a uniform out here for you. After that, so we go be a permanent animal guard. Now at this time, I was bullshitting with the dudes. I was trying to motivate them, let them know, because some dudes were like, man, fuck this place. I'm telling them, no, dude, this is where you want to be. You want to be in the 82nd Airborne. It's a good fucking unit. Some other dudes were telling me stuff like, the biggest gripe I heard was our company commander. And I'm just like, what the fuck is the gripe with our company commander? All types of weird shit I heard. And I didn't just hear this from Joes. I heard this from fellow NCOs. So there was a lot of negativity going around. And I remember two soldiers asked me, I asked them, what do you guys think of the commander? And they said, what did they say? Said that she got them lost on the land nav course. And I'm like, all right, officers, there's a saying, you can't spell lost without LT. Granted, this was the captain, but, same shit in my opinion. I'm like, all right, whatever, little mistake. I wouldn't care. And we had good soldiers. This is where I fucked up big time. One soldier told me that his brother killed himself in January, and it was January of 2024. And he couldn't go to the funeral because this field event was more important, and essentially the commander insulted him. And I'm like, what? I said, fuck that bitch. And anytime she walked by, I was so mad hearing that, because I had left my previous duty station and we had a lot of suicides, and we openly saw the neglect and the fucking shitty leadership at that unit, and it was unacceptable. And I was not making the right choices, and this was wrong of me, because that soldier that told me that, I found out he fucking lied. So it turns out his brother killed himself a year ago, not that month. But I'll get into that later. So I said, fuck that bitch. That dumb bitch doesn't give a fuck was. And then I started spiraling. I started telling other soldiers this. I said that comment to a couple of those soldiers whenever I saw the commander walk by. I said, you see that bitch? Fuck that bitch. And, shit just got worse for me. Obviously, I'm just running my mouth being a fucking idiot. I remember one instance, and I regret this, and it actually scared me, this comment that I said. I said, I had family issues in my youth, and I said, I'd fucking shoot this relative of mine, and then I went, whoa, holy shit, did I just say that? And I said it next to a new Joe, and I'm like, oh God. Now luckily, with the changing army, I was concerned that maybe comments like what I said were becoming more unacceptable versus when stuff was said like that when I was private. The dude looked a little concerned, and I'm like, all right, shit. Time goes on, and things started getting weird. My PO came and talked to me, and he said, some soldier said that I wanted to harm myself. And I'm like, wait, what? His team leader came and talked to me. He's like, dude, you all right? I'm like, I don't remember saying that. I do remember bringing that up, because one thing that helps me is I tell people, I've been there. I've thought of harming myself before, but you know what? You get help. It's good, and it will help you. I believe I said something along those lines, and maybe I don't remember. I could have cracked a suicide joke, or I could have just been misinterpreted. I don't remember. But essentially, soldiers thought I wanted to harm myself, or thought I said that I wanted to harm myself. And I said, hey, sorry, dude. I didn't mean to make your guy uncomfortable. I tell him I appreciate him for being so concerned about me. He's like, okay. And I was like, fuck. All right. I told my platoon sergeant, I think I should go back after the field's over and get some help. Because one thing I did is I refused to go to behavioral health, because as much as the Army says they support it, there's still those that don't. And I'm not going to say my leadership didn't support me at that time. I just didn't know. And I just wanted to suck it up and move forward. But the problem was I couldn't suck it up. I was not being the best I could have been. So then all of a sudden, another sergeant shows up. The first sergeant shows up, and the commander shows up, and they take me back from the field. And I'm like, this is weird. Why is this dude coming with us? So I asked him, hey dude, why are you coming back? Oh, well, I have to meet so-and-so because of this. And I'm like, all right, this dude's fucking lying to me. They probably got him in case they need to gang up on me. They probably think I'm a threat. So I get back to the coffin. First sergeant just staring me down, trying to fucking intimidate me with his eyes. And I'm like, that's unprofessional. And he's like, get your shit, get upstairs. Put it away, get upstairs. I'm like, okay. Leave my weapon by the arms room and go put my stuff in my locker. So he sits at the company CQ desk and starts going off like, why did you threaten the commander? I'm like, what the fuck? And my heart started pounding. I'm like, first sergeant, I didn't threaten the commander. You were saying specific things. I'm like, yeah, I was talking shit about her, but I didn't fucking threaten her. In the moment, I knew someone reported me. I'm like, all right. But threat against my CO never fucking happened, and I was blown away by that. So he tells me, all right, you're gonna go to the hospital. You're gonna tell him that you had some dark thoughts. And I'm like, first my thought was, all right, my first thought was, don't try to fucking intimidate me. Dude was not scary at all. I could tell he was just a dude that thought because he's big, he could fuck with people. So he and that other sergeant take me to the hospital in his POV. I meet the rear D squad leader from my platoon there. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't threaten the CO. So then I meet a social worker. Social worker there goes, so what's going on? Why are you saying things about so-and-so? I'm like, who's so-and-so? Oh, Captain so-and-so, but I know her as first name. And I'm like, why is this social worker on first name basis with my commander? This is a little weird. So she goes, so did you threaten her? I'm like, no, I didn't threaten her. And then she goes, are you sure? Are you sure you didn't threaten her? And my first thought was, you're a fucking social worker. You're here for the soldiers. You're supposed to be impartial. What the fuck is going on here? So I explained to her why I said these comments. She goes, oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. And then she explained to me, she knows the soldier without violating his HIPAA rights, and no, his brother killed himself a year ago. And I went, I'm a fucking retard. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? So she kept interrogating me, essentially going, are you sure you didn't threaten? I'm like, I did not threaten the fucking CO. She goes, okay. She goes and talks to my CO on the phone, comes back and goes, okay, you're free to go. By the way, your commander wanted me to let you know that she's pissed, you did threaten her, and there's sworn statements. I'm like, okay. So I get up and leave, and I'm like, what the fuck? That was weird. Why would the commander say that to the social worker? Like, why would she say, just want to let you know? Like, I've never seen a commander do that before. And she seemed a little too close to that social worker. That concerned me. I'm like, why is she that close with that social worker? Because who knows? Maybe she's trying to get more information about what I'm saying about her, about what I'm talking about with behavioral health. There's a reason that that's supposed to remain confidential. And my first thought is does this commander try to violate soldiers' HIPAA rights? So I go back to my barracks room, and I meet my roommate, and I tell him about the situation, and he goes, I'm going to tell you right now. She is going to take this as far as it can go. And I thought, holy shit. So, next day I go to work. Platoon sergeant comes back. Get counseled by him. He's like, dude, what the fuck? Luckily in the counseling, he said, you're being counseled for saying that you'd shoot your relative and calling the commander a bitch. And I'm like, oh, thank God. It seemed that the investigation went out, and it's clear I didn't threaten her, and I was like, thank God. But I knew that there's a storm waiting for me when everyone got back. So went to behavioral health for a safety check after that, and I remember I went in there, and then I'm like, hey ma'am, I don't know what's going on here. I think I got called in because of a suicide ideation. Look, I am not suicidal, but I cracked a suicide note. She goes, okay. I'm putting you on a profile. And I'm like, what do you mean you're putting me on a profile? She's like, you're passively suicidal. And I'm like, no, and I start freaking out because at this point I dug a hole, and I essentially jumped in the hole and kept digging. And I'm trying to get out of the hole at this point. And being in an infantry unit as an NCO on a behavioral health profile, you might as well pour that fucking hole full of concrete at that point. So I'm like, no the fuck I'm not. So then she starts asking me if I have firearms, and I'm like, I refuse to answer that question. And then she goes, why not? And I'm like, I don't want to give up my firearms, because when I was at Campbell, I was having a bad time and I got put on a suicide profile, and my guns were taken from me, and one of them got damaged. One of them was a $2,000 rifle, and I was fucking pissed about that. And I didn't want to give them up. So I'm like, I'm not giving my keys up. It's my hobby. It's my escape. I go to the range. If you're really concerned, I can bring someone with me to go shoot with me. She's like, okay, it's your right. So then she goes and talks to my escort, which kind of concerned me a little, but I didn't think anything of it. So they bring this up to my commander, and immediately, I believe my commander had me confined to post. And my commander confined me to post. And I'm like, what the fuck? So then I do a walk-in at behavioral health. I'm like, hey, I'd like to give up my keys. So here's the situation. My commander was still adamant that I was homicidal toward her. So she confined me to post to, I guess, keep herself safe. Most likely, I think she was trying to fuck with me because of how much of a fucking bitch she is. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I went to behavioral health and they said, yeah, we agree with you. You shouldn't. This isn't going to help you. Anything but time behavioral health says, get help. One of the things they tell you is get out of Fort Bragg, get out of the barracks, go relax somewhere, go to the beach. You know. Now all of a sudden I'm confined to one of the highest suicide rates in the Army's bases. So the therapist there tried to help me. They said, hey, it's too late. And I'm like, what do you mean it's too late? So I start losing my shit because all I was thinking about was the article. I couldn't fucking function. I was living at work at that point. So I kind of have a mental breakdown. And I'm trying to talk normally, but I can't. I'm fucking yelling. And I concerned this therapist, so he walked out in the hallway, and I tried talking to him. But again, I'm fucking yelling because of how anxious I am, how angry I am. And I'm like, I do not want to see my current therapist anymore. Like, okay, it's your right, man. I switched therapists, and he explains to me there, hey, man, we have to be that way. And I'm like, because behavioral health at Fort Campbell wasn't like that. They didn't react like that. And I was having a lot of issues with Robinson Behavioral Health. So I kept doing walk-ins. I'm like, please unconfine me from post. You people make me want to drink. And they're like, well, it's up to your commander. I'm like, all right. So I went to my platoon sergeant. I'm like, hey, can I give my keys up? And at this point, I'm mad. I remember one night I got drunk and I went to my truck and I beat the shit out of my own truck. Whether that was okay or not, I get that. It's my fucking POV. I'm not punching my hole in my barracks room wall and it's covering your property. It's my truck. I do what I want. And, you know, word got around I was doing that and I drank. And because I told behavioral health that you people make me want to drink, I guess they were like, they told the commander I need to be commander for just at sea. But my platoon sergeant said, enroll yourself or we'll make you. I went, okay. So, you know, work's going on. I'm like just showing up to work, trying to do my thing. We're preparing for JRTC. At this point, like, I tried to give up my keys to my leadership. They're like, no, you can't. And with this behavior, you're not going to get unconfined for post. My first thought was, whoa. First, you confine me to post to keep me safe. Now you're doing it as a punishment, which I don't think you can do. All right, so my commander was being a fucking bitch. Yeah, I get at some point she was concerned for her safety. But at this point, like, I didn't threaten her, and she should have known this if she saw the investigation. So she was still adamant that I threatened her. Part of my counseling, I had to go apologize to her. So I went to go apologize to her. And she tells me that she's going to do a field grade Article 15 because there were threats against an officer. And I said, ma'am, I never threatened you. She goes, well, there's sworn statements that say otherwise. And I'm like, I really fucking doubt that. And one thing, at first I was really sorry. But then I realized what a fucking bitch she was when she said this. So I went in there and I gave her as much of a sincere apology as I could, because my platoon sergeant told me, think up a good apology, make it sincere. And she goes, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I'm like, oh God, this white fucking diva bitch attitude. She goes, "I do more than any other company commander in this battalion." And I'm like, oh God, this bitch is gonna ruin me. She's like, I was at Soldier Support Center helping a soldier get a CNA done. Who commander does that? And I'm thinking, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Selfless service. You do a task without expecting a reward. Integrity, you do what's right at all times. Like, that should be expected of you. The pretentiousness that came off her, I'm like, all right, fuck this bitch. At that point, I didn't care anymore. So she started lying too. So I was at a CQ desk, and I was stressed from the way behavioral health was treating me. And I remember, I was bullshitting with a private. I'm like, hey, what do you think of Robinson Behavioral Health? And he goes, I don't think they're all right. I'm like, what? I hated how they treated me. They did this to me, and because of this, the command had to do this. And my commander was standing behind me when I made these comments. Went in her office, called my platoon sergeant, and told him I was talking shit about her. Which I could confirm to you I was not. I don't know if she's just that emotional to a point where, like, she's just so mad. She just looks at me talking and just decides to get on the phone and lie and tell my platoon sergeant I'm talking shit about her. I don't fucking know what the fuck that was about. But that happened. And he starts chewing me going, I'm gonna take your fucking rank. And I'm like, so I go to one of my safety checks, and I'm like, he's like, hey man, just talk to your platoon sergeant and explain the situation. I'm like, all right. So I talked to my platoon sergeant one-on-one, and I explained to him, hey sergeant, I get that maybe you have an issue as a professionalism. My old unit, I was in the deco. We're very close with the Joes. I was taught to complain about certain things. If you don't want me complaining at all, I completely understand. Lesson learned, never gonna happen again. But I need to confirm something with you right now. When I was at that desk, I never said shit about the commander. And I knew I was fucked when he told me this. Well, man, just be careful, because she's looking for anything on you. And I'm like, all right. So later I'm at a detail, and I get a phone call from one of the AGs in Weapons Squad. He's like, hey, dude, you got to come in for your first reading. And I'm like, shit. So I go to my first reading at battalion. Sergeant Major reads me the charges. You're being charged with fuck that bitch and 8 counts of that dumb bitch doesn't give a fuck about us. And I'm like, Sergeant Major, those are the charges, right? And he goes, yes. What could possibly be worse than that? And my first thought is threatening an officer. And then he has me recite the NCO creed. And at that point, I had a shitty attitude. I'm like, I don't deserve a fuel grade. I deserve a company grade. And then first line of the NCO creed, no one is more professional than I. And he cut me off and went, what the fuck? And I went, holy shit. I thought my money's right. As much grievances as I'm complaining about this situation, I violated the NCO creed and I deserve to lose my rank. And I own that. And I just want to let that know. I still think my commander is then and now a stupid bitch. But the professionalism I lacked as an NCO was unacceptable. And I own that. So after that, my platoon sergeant and all of them, they leave and go back to the company. And they didn't say shit to me. So they waited till they were at the company. And I'm there. And he has the private call me. So then I go back to the company, and then he was actually trying to help me. So I was in contact with an attorney about my situation, a really good attorney that I knew at Fort Campbell, to help me out with this situation. And we're talking, and he's telling me about how RCP works, because if I get demoted, I'll hit RCP, retention control point, hit my 8-year mark, and get kicked out. Now, for those of you aware, it changed to 12 years, but that's only if you have an ETS date. I believe at the time it was 2025. Mine was in 2026, so my RCP would be at 8 years. And he was talking to me, and he wanted to help me, but he was being really... So my platoon sergeant, I began to realize I'm not going to diagnose the dude, but I believe he had borderline personality disorder. And I could tell he concerned the platoon quite a bit with how he would act. My squad leader at the time said, "Hey man, watch out for Sergeant so-and-so's moods." And I'm like, once he's in his moods, it's bad. I'm like, okay. He would talk, and he's trying to talk to you normally, but he would go. He was holding back. Like he wanted to talk to you normally, but like his mind was like, chew that motherfucker out. And I could see that in him. And I'm like, okay. So we're talking, and then I get a text message in. He's telling me about RCP. I get text messages. I answer real quick. And I put my phone down and I go, he looks at me and I'm like, oh wait, did he get offended by that? You don't answer your phone if it's not talking to you. However, newer army, the fucking phone thing is ridiculous. We're constantly on our phones. And I went, hey, my bad. And as I'm saying that, he loses his fucking shit. I'm not going to play a victim and say he didn't lose his shit for no fucking reason. You know, that was a little disrespectful of me. He's trying to help me, taking time to talk to me in the office. He actually read the regs. Looking back now, and I feel bad about that. I tried to own up to it, but he just lost it. And I tried reasoning with him, like, hey, my bad. He's like, get out of my office. And I'm like, so I went outside his office and I stood there. And I guess he saw me standing in the hallway. He's like, he started losing his, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of this building now. Run, run. So I run out of the building and I'm like, what the fuck did that come from? I get it. All right. He's talking to me. He's trying to help me. And he really was. But I checked my phone. It's like, dude, come on. I'm like, hey, my bad. Because nowadays, like, you could have got a text message from somebody important. You know, because that culture's kind of changed. But at the same time, it kind of hasn't. So I really should not have been on my phone. And at this point, so because I was enrolled in voluntary Sud C, my first thought was, all right, he's in his moods. I kind of saw a bit of his moods from the beginning of my time in the platoon. And I'm like, shit, he's in one of his moods. I better fucking get rid of my alcohol. Because I had a room inspection, and I had alcohol in my room. And my platoon sergeant didn't make a big deal of it. He's like, hey, man, you should get rid of this. But here's the thing about the word should. It's a magical word in the Army. Yeah, man, you shouldn't do that, but there's nothing stopping you. If he, as a platoon sergeant, really thought, hey, get rid of this, yeah, tell me to get rid of it. However, we were doing things, we were working a lot leading up to JRTC. And he didn't really, he was just like, hey, man, you should get rid of this, man. Platoon sergeant gives you a suggestion, always follow it. But remember, a suggestion's a suggestion. All right, go ahead and call me out in the comments for this. I chose not to get rid of my alcohol. I didn't have a drinking problem because once they brought the concern that they thought I had a drinking problem, I stopped drinking. I'm like, I don't want these guys to be concerned about me. I stopped drinking. And I kept the alcohol in my room, and I'm like, all right, he's probably gonna. So I got in my truck and I drove to the barracks, and I started tossing out my alcohol. Why did I not get rid of it like you said? Well, I wasn't throwing away all this alcohol I accumulated. I wanted to give it away. That's also why I didn't just start throwing it away. And I wanted to, the soldier community lounge, put it in the fridge. But then what happens if a soldier who's under 21 drinks it? I'm liable for that now. While there were people doing that, I didn't want to take that risk. I wanted to be on my P's and Q's because of the UCMJ action I was under. So I had 6 beers left in the fridge. I'll never forget, I had 6 Coronas left in the fridge. And I get a phone call from a staff sergeant. He goes, where the fuck are you? And I'm like, I'm in my room. And he's like, why? I'm like, I'm throwing away alcohol. So they call me back to the cough. And my platoon sergeant's like, chewing me the fuck. He's like, you're not doing anything that we're telling you to get better. And I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm not doing anything to get better? He starts losing his shit saying that. He's like, I told you to get rid of the alcohol. I'm like, no, you didn't. You said I should get rid of that alcohol. He's like, all right, I'm going to counsel you. And, like, he concerned me with the way he was reacting. Where the fuck did this come from? I get it. Call me out in the comment section again. I get that I pissed him off for being on my phone. And then he goes, why are you on your phone? I'm like, I was talking to my attorney. Why are you talking to an attorney? I'm like, my first thought is, first of all, it's my fucking right to talk to an attorney. You have a right to an attorney, a TDS attorney, or both. And he's like, all right, but we're sending you to TDS. Why are you talking to an attorney? And I was a little creeped out by that. It seemed like he was trying to manipulate me. So with what he said there, I was like, whatever. So, next day he counsels me, and I try telling him, hey, you did say should get rid of it. And he goes, what? Like, you told me I should get rid of it. And he goes, it's a chapterable offense. I told you to. I'm like, no, you said I should. And he starts getting more mad at me and bearing down on me. So I said, all right, I agree with the counseling. I should have disagreed with that fucking counseling. I did write a bit of a rebuttal in there. I don't remember what I wrote, but I remember writing that and going, all right, this is weird. What the fuck is wrong with this dude? And immediately I'm like, hey, after my Article 15, I think I should leave the company. Because actually, I think you should leave the battalion. I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll take your word for it. So he talks to the commander. The commander was adamant about keeping me. So here's why I'm making this video. I've been going through my medical records that I've been receiving to get my VA claims. The comments that she had been making about me to my behavioral health therapist is unprofessional, immature, and just blatant targeting. She was planning to chapter me from the moment the 15-6 started. She was planning it. All that fucking bitch ever did, Article 15 chapter, Article 15 chapter, Article 15 chapter, with no rehabilitative measures. She just gets off on the power that she's a commander, and she could just take someone, not only kick them out of the fucking army, but give them a bad character discharge like a general or another than honorable. And I began seeing who she really was, and she was a fucking piece of shit. Like, she wasn't just a shitty commander, she was just a shitty fucking person. So, things are getting worse and worse. Then one night, my roommate was having a bad night. Knock on his door, he answers. I'm not in the fucking mood. He slams the door. I start calling him, start texting him, he starts not responding. And my first thought is, all right, this dude's thinking about offing himself. But he didn't tell me I'm gonna off myself. So I elected to call his friend, because as somebody that has put a loaded gun to his head before and has sought out behavioral health, I know that if somebody tries to force that on me, call the police, call authoritative figures to come deal with me, even if it's to help me, unfortunately, this is the reality when you do that. They shut out. I would shut that person out. And I knew he would do that to me. And the last thing I wanted, if he was ever in a situation like that, to do that. Because at that point, he would shut himself out so he could quietly leave and go harm himself. And as somebody who lost his friend to suicide in the army, I was not about to let that fucking happen. So I called his friend. The same friend that was ostracized, he was ostracized from because of the order from the investigation that my stupid fucking commander, no. She just wanted to fuck with that kid because he didn't like him. The biggest thing about my commander in that company, if she liked you, she treated you too well. If she didn't like you, she fucking made sure you were treated like the worst fucking piece of scum on planet Earth. And the roommate was on staff. The roommate's friend was on staff duty. So the staff duty NCO came. There's a squad leader in our platoon, and knocks on the door. He slams the door in his face. So they call an NCO from his company to come by. He comes by, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on with you?" He's like, "I'm having a bad time." And I'm like, "Hey." I started explaining to the NCO there's a lot of targeting going on. And he starts talking about grievances about this company. Why? He said, why is it always this company has soldiers on extra duty? Why? Constantly. And I'll fucking tell you why. Article 15 chapter. Why is there a recruiting crisis? You have a commander like what I have, slamming fucking articles just because she fucking can. Just because she gets on her high horse. Ruining good dudes' lives. Dudes that could be rehabilitated. And just blatantly being a fucking schoolyard bully. Like, the lack of emotional maturity in this fucking woman was insane. And the first sergeant, too, was not helping. The first sergeant was just being a lazy, arrogant fucking douchebag. They team up command teams. I remember I talked to a sergeant major. They match people up, commanders and first sergeants, with the best people possible. They get along. Those two were shitty, toxic, negative human beings, and they stuck together like glue. They're both pretty fucking retarded, too, in my opinion. So, next day, I get a counseling from that NCO because I kept texting the soldier, do you think he's suspicious? Because I did not want that soldier to get in trouble and then have some negative concept toward me for trying to get him to talk to him, even though that order was illegal. I was freaking out. So I got counseled for that. I got counseled for trying to help my roommate. Granted, it did seem like I was being a little malicious, and I understand that. But that's, hey, come talk to me. Not, I'm a fucking beta male bitch, and I'm gonna get so offended that I'm gonna go cry to the platoon sergeant and write a counseling to fuck this dude over. There wasn't that. It was, I'm a beta male bitch, and I'm just gonna counsel him because I can. I don't get that. I don't get where that dude's mentality as an NCO came from, and it was kind of fucking bullshit. So I'm losing it, man. At this point, I was actually having suicide ideation. I was on a daily basis thinking about ending my fucking life. That's all I cared about in my existence, was fucking dying. So then, I'm going to have my second reading. We have my second reading. Same charges, nothing changed. Fuck that bitch. That dumb bitch doesn't give a fuck about us. I get demoted from sergeant to specialist, 2 months of half pay, 45 days extra duties, and then they go 45 days confinement. I'm like, all right, think positive. We're going to do this for 8 days, then we're going to pause, go to JRTC, and resume it. Now here's some bullshit. The majority of soldiers in that battalion at that time that were on extra duty were from the company I was in. 3 of those soldiers that were on extra duty continued their extra duty through JRTC. I was the only one that they wanted to pause and then continue on later. The day after that Article 15 comes down, at this point, I'm bad. One of the tasks we did on extra duty that night, we had to move some broken glass, giant pieces of broken glass, because we had tables and we were smashing the glass. I remember walking with that piece of glass, and I'm like, jump on the glass, and I'm like forcing myself not to do it. And then I'm like, oh, this is bad. And then whatever, fuck it. I didn't care. So I went in the next day. I remember first starting talking like, hey, extra duty needs to be going to the ammunition distribution place on Fort Liberty. I'm on a no weapons profile. My platoon sergeant, I tried to leave that company. Second time I tried to leave that company, I'm like, hey, Sergeant, I think you should leave this company. He's like, can I talk to you one-on-one? I was like, what? And a squad leader tried to get up and leave. And my platoon goes, no, you sit down. He goes, well, he starts sizing me up, sitting down, like, why are you trying to leave? I'm like, he's like, but if you leave, I have to write your NCOER. And I have to write the EO standard not met. And you'll never promote the staff sergeant. I'm like, I know. I knew the fucker was lying to me. I knew that cocksucker was lying to me. That's not how E5 NCOERs work. You can be rated unqualified, and then next NCOER qualified, oh, bam, you're a staff sergeant. You don't get into QMP until you hit your staff sergeant. I knew the fucker was lying to me. And I was really deeply fucking concerned about that. And I'm like, no, I think I should leave this company. I'm not going to promote past E5. I'm just getting out. And he goes, you need to stay. The commander's not going to let you move. She's not going to let you move. And I'm like, what company do you want to go to? I want to go to Chaos. Oh, because my roommate was in Chaos. And they were still fucking with him in that company, as from described earlier. That's not happening. You might go to ACO, but they're just not going to take you. They're not going to take you. And eventually I just gave up. The dude was manipulating the shit out of me. Article happens, like I said, next day, I'm sifting ammo. Or I'm about to go sift ammo. And then I realized I'm on a no weapons profile. No weapons profile means no weapons and no munitions. So no grenades, no pyrotechnics, no ammo. And I said, hey, Sergeant, is there going to be live ammo here? He goes, yeah, there is. Okay, I'm on a no weapons profile. He's like, oh, hey, you can't be here. Hey, call your first sergeant. I'm like, I don't have his phone number. I have my platoon sergeant's number. He goes, okay, call him. I'll call my platoon sergeant. He doesn't answer the fucking phone. I don't know if he was just being a pretentious bitch, like, I'm not an NCO anymore, and he's making an example, like, I need to use a chain of command. I get that. Maybe he could have called me yelling at me, and I could have went, hey, hold on, I got someone here for you. But no, he just decided not to answer the phone. He's like, hey, man, I'll let my first sergeant know, and he'll tell your first sergeant, or something like that. So I start walking back to the company. As I'm about to walk in the company, I get a phone call from the same staff sergeant that counseled me for the improper use of chain of command with my roommate. And he goes, why the fuck did you call the platoon sergeant? I'm like, because I was told to. By who? Sergeant so-and-so. I'm like, look, I got taken off the ammo detail. So we go upstairs. He's like, why'd you get taken off the detail, huh? I'm like, because I'm on a no weapons profile. I was like, but that means you can't touch weapons. Does that mean? I'm like, yes, I'm aware. You're not allowed to touch weapons, pyrotechnics, or munitions. That's how a no weapons profile works. So they're like, do you have a copy of your profile? No, I don't, but we can pull it up on iPerms. We pull up my profile, and then we talk to the platoon max, and like, yeah, that's a no-go. He can't be around munitions. So then I go, hey, now that I'm back, can I continue packing for JRTC? He's like, yeah. I leave, and as I'm downstairs packing for JRTC, or I'm in the log room packing for JRTC, get a phone call, get back in the office. Get back in the office, and they initiate a Chapter 14 on me, and I'm like, oh, shit. Explained to me for having 2 fuel grade articles in 1 6-month period, and I thought, I'm getting an honorable, right? My platoon sergeant goes, no, just from this misconduct these past 3 weeks, you're getting an other than honorable. And my stupid ass believed that cocksucker. So I just sat there in my mind, and I went, you know what? It's time to fucking die. And I just stood there laughing. And my platoon leader goes, hey, do you want to go to JRTC? And I'm like, sir, I'm not really fucking thinking about that right now. So my platoon sergeant's like, I need you to do this. So he writes down this post-it note. He's like, you should get these. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go to my barracks room to get my contract and take care of what needs to be taken care of. He goes, all right. I leave. I drive to the barracks with my rucksack. I take my ruck up to my barracks room. And I pull out my K-bar knife. I tried to cut down the street. It's what this is right here. I tried to cut down the street and it wasn't working. So I stopped and I'm like, maybe I should get help. And then I go, nah, fuck it. I'm not a quitter. I put the knife on my wrist and I go full force and I split my arm open. That's what that is. And I tried to go pick the knife up as I'm gushing blood out, and my hand wasn't working. I lost all movement in my hand. And And I'm like, oh shit, I'm about to fucking die. Okay. And then I just said, oh, I'm gonna die. Thank God, it's all over. And as I'm standing there, all of a sudden adrenaline filled my body. And a cognitive realization hit me. I'm like, I'm about to die. I don't want to die. And I looked on the ground, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of blood. I then tried to walk away from my own wound. And then I'm like, nope, I did it. I gotta get help. I picked my phone up and tried calling 911. During that day, AT&T cell towers were down. I went, oh, fuck. The towers are down. Shit. So I run out of my barracks room to try to get service. Service wasn't happening, so I tried to go back in. Locked my keys in my barracks room, and then I realized as I'm out there, my IFAC's in there. And I go, fuck, my individual first aid kit's not with me. So I stood out there for about 10-15 minutes bleeding out all over the fucking 4th floor of the barracks. As I'm bleeding out, I finally get 911 on the phone because I knew that if I went out to a cell tower, it would connect. 911 comes on the phone. I say, hey, what's up, man? I just tried to fucking kill myself. And he goes, you tried to kill yourself? I'm like, yeah, man, can you help me? And I tried telling him the address. I didn't know the building number at the time. So as I'm about to go downstairs and get the building number, 5 soldiers from my company show up from another platoon. And I'm like, then I stopped and realized, wait a minute, I'm going to freak these dudes out. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was just losing a lot of blood. I was as pale as this piece of paper right here. That's how much blood I was losing. So I'm bleeding out, and those dudes, the 911 operator was like, hey, is there someone there? I'm like, yeah. He goes, ask them for help. I went, oh, okay. I turn around, and they're standing there, staring at the hallway with all the fucking blood all over the fucking hallway. And I go, hey, can you guys help me? And I pick my arm up with my hand dangling because I can't move my hand. But I just tried to kill myself. And they pinned me against the wall, put a tourniquet on me, TC3'd me. And apparently I was going like in and out of, I was a little delirious, but I didn't know. They kept going, hey, hey, hey. And I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? I didn't realize I was going in and out, and I was saying shit like I'm a failure to my family. I didn't know any of that shit was happening. So then they get the ambulance here and take me downstairs. And they take me downstairs, and as they're bawling my eyes out, I'm like, I fucking hate my leadership. They're trying to chapter me. I had it. I had it with my commander. I had it with my platoon sergeant. I was fucking done. I told the MP, you keep those motherfuckers away from me. So my platoon sergeant and 2 NCOs from the platoon ran up to me, and they were fucking sweating and shaking with their eyes wide. Because I had a tourniquet on my arm with an ace wrap right here, and I was pale white. So when I got up and walked to the ambulance, I had the ambulance go to the hospital. As I'm in the hospital, I realized, like, oh, holy shit. I just cut my hand. They unwrapped it, and I saw my work. I saw the inside of my arm, and I'm like, ooh, that's freaky. I did not let the escort, who was the same NCO that counseled me, come into my fucking hospital room. I said, keep them away. Then my commander shows up, and I'm like, what the fuck is she doing here? I'm like, all right, she doesn't have to be here. She wants to be here. So I thought, all right, she drove here. I said, come in. And she was just trying to fucking bullshit me. Trying to like, oh, it's just because you have 2 field grade Article 15s. That's why we're trying to chapter you. Like, no. I knew she was lying. And looking back now, reading through my behavioral health records that I have access to now, she openly said, I've never seen a commander blatantly fucking just shit talk a soldier to a behavioral health therapist. Like, yeah, so he's not behaving right, so we're gonna have to separate him under chapter 14C for threatening an officer. And at this point, she kept telling behavioral health that I threatened her when she fucking knew from the first and second reading that I didn't. There was no evidence to support that. But because she heard that rumor, acting like the fucking high school cheerleader wannabe she is, the fucking mean girl she is, she wanted to keep telling people that I threatened to kill her to make me look like the psychopath, the Michael Myers, the whatever you want to fucking call it. Then she makes remarks as I'm in my hospital bed going, just because you're not good at this doesn't mean you won't be good at other things. And I'm like, I was about to tell both of them to get the fuck out, but I decided to just be polite. They prepared me for surgery. I then went in and got orthopedic surgery. Completion of surgery, they sent me upstairs. And following this video, I will make a part 2 and tell you about past that.